Hey everyone, Zura here. I've been wanting to record this video for some time now, and I'm very happy that finally I've come to doing this. Now, what is this video about? This video is going to be about an unusual event that happened a few weeks ago during the regular weekly tournament on chess.com, the Title Tuesday. This tournament features some of the best players in the world, and previously some of my notable wins, I think the highest rated wins I've had, were against Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, Arun Erigaisi, and Alexei Sarana. Now, in this week's edition, after winning my first game, or I believe first two games, I faced none other than Fabiano Caruana. Now, for those who may not know, I don't think Fabi needs an introduction, but Fabiano is a former World Championship challenger and one of the top three players, maybe even two players of the last decade. Now we'll see how that game went, but when I thought that the competition could not get any stronger, the surprises did not end there. Next, I got to play the ultimate boss, the man himself, Magnus Carlsen. Quite a day in the office, taking on two of the best chess players in the world. Without further ado, let's dive into the games and see what happened. First, I'm gonna show game versus Fabi, and as the irony would have it, Fabi chooses to play a line that I had actually looked up absolutely randomly with a student of mine, maybe a week before this game was played. E6, and Fabi decides to go G4 immediately. All right. Now I attempted doing something like this after knight c3 bishop b4 with my student, but still ideas are very close here. Whether we play g4 on the move 3 or move 4. Well, I captured the pawn on g4, and white goes e4. Now let's talk a little bit about the position. What is this about? White sacrifices the pawn early on. Clearly this is a gambit. I am actually not sure what would this be called. Apparently Devin gambit. And the idea is white wants to take control of the center early on, and that's what happens after capturing this pawn on g4, e4, and now white gets a strong center, attacks the knight immediately here, and argues that development is going to be just as important. Now, what do I choose to do here? I knew actually that f5 is probably the most precise move, and then line goes, for example, either immediately e5 here, or well, e5 there will be d6, I believe. Is it h3 first, or is it knight to c3? And then if queen here, queen goes to e2. What if actually white does play e4? Then there will be d6. What about, let's say, playing h3? Yep, knight goes to f6, then e5. Knight will have to go to e4. Knight goes to f3. I knew actually that this was probably the most critical, but when Fabi played this very fast, I had assumed that his understanding of this position could have been better than mine, since I had literally glimpsed at it for less than 2 minutes probably. So instead of going for the critical line, which computer only wow it is 0.6, and with pawn up, 0.6 is actually not that huge. That speaks of white's counterplay in the position. So what I chose to do instead here is retreat back, knight to f6 to attack the pawn on e4, and my idea was if e5, I was ready to go to g8 and then attack this center with d6, trying to trade it off, then going knight c6 or c5, depending how white handles the position. So Fabi plays knight c3 instead, protects the pawn, and now I have time to play d6, e5 is not going to be nearly as effective because we're going to trade queens afterwards. He plays knight to f3, knight goes to c6, preparing for e5 myself. Bishop goes to g5 to put the pin on my knight, h6, bishop retreats back to h4, and rightfully so, I was quite happy to play g5 here and kick that bishop away and develop my own on the long diagonal. He continues with queen d2, and here I decided to go knight to h5. Computer likes this move just as much as on the next move here it would like to go g4, and let's say whenever white goes knight h5, we can try going knight h5 now, d5, knight d4, long castle, probably e5 with a very considerable advantage for black. A pawn up, I am controlling the center, and it is not so clear where the white's counterplay lies in this position. I can go like queen g5 next. Honestly, I can play on the king side, I can play on the queen side, I control the center. Black is all over this position. Unfortunately, I started with knight h5, and when he played d5, now g4 would have still be very strong, because if you capture on c6, I can capture on f3 here, and this is basically -2 for black. If you go, let's say, takes on b7, bishop takes b7, queen e3, queen goes to f6, putting the pressure on this long diagonal still, probably rook b8 down the line, weakening the b2 pawn. Black's advantage is still without the question here. Maybe long castle, but now I can try to trade queens. So what ends up happening in the game is I did not play g4, I took on g3, h takes g3, and then moved my knight to e5. This still maintains an advantage here and an extra pawn, but I definitely did not use this unorthodox opening gambit that basically he gambled with. Bishop takes e5, f4, bishop retreats now back to g7, long castle, and although there are no immediate threats on black's position here, white still managed to finish the development here and will have some active prospects. And it's not so easy for black to find the safe side. Throughout the entire time, I was thinking that my safe side here would be on the long side, and therefore I played bishop d7, plays bishop e2, and then I go queen e7 with the idea of castling long on the next move. But he plays queen e3 to stop me from castling. Now if I go long castle here, I'm gonna drop a7 pawn, and my king is in danger there. So clearly I cannot give up the a7. I played b6 to secure the diagonal, and now he decided to capture on e6. Here I played very fast this move. I believe the better move here would be capturing back with the bishop on e6, and if he goes knight d5, then I probably would have to take that and go short castle here. The best continuation apparently still here. Computer is suggesting that instead of going b6 would have been taking on f4 and then going e5. Now I'm trying to weaken dark squares as much as I can here, so my bishop would come strong. If white was to go f5, here I can try go bishop f6, or I can try to go queen g5, actually trade this queens off the board. Now we're gonna end up with a position where black might not have a very obvious way to make progress here. However, it's almost impossible to imagine black losing this position. And extra pawn playing for 2 results versus number 2 player in the world, I'll take those odds. I think those are pretty good odds. I wish I had played g takes f4, but I did not in the game. I played b6 instead, allowed this, And on d takes e6, for some reason I played f takes e6 very fast. I think what the reason was here is after b6, he spent 30 seconds out of the remaining 1 minute and 45 seconds and went down on time below me. I mean, so I'm up a pawn, I'm up 20 seconds on the clock. So I was getting very excited during the game. So that was the reason of this inaccuracy here. I got overwhelmed and captured fe quick and allowed bishop h5 check. Now my king is gonna get stuck in the center. After king d8, here comes e5, and I'm not able to secure my king. I go king c8, he takes on d6, then bishop to c6, attacking my rook. Now I move the rook on the side, knight comes on d5 to attack my queen. I cannot capture, this is pinned. I have to move on the side, knight to b4, and this knight now is eyeing at his prey. His prey, I think, going to be a6 square or c6 or something dangerous near my king. Captures on f4, g captures on f4. I go queen to f6 to set up the battery along the long diagonal, but very precise rook h2 here to shut down my counterplay. I go rook to f8 to attack the f4 pawn, but rook g2, another very precise move made very fast. And now the idea is that if I do capture on f4, he will capture my bishop on g7, and once I capture rook on f3, he has this very sneaky move, knight to a6, and now I cannot go up on b7 because I'm getting mated. Well, I'm not mated, but I'll have to give up the bishop here in order not to get mated. So I'm gonna lose a lot of material there. So that will be lights out. Basically, if I move rook a8, he's gonna capture on d6. Both rooks extremely active. Knight, this is a game over. So I move the bishop back to h8. He goes knight a6, and from here on, black is in a very difficult situation. I tried to fight a little bit, but all black pieces here are going to be in trouble. Queen goes to f5. Have the final trick to threaten there some checks, but he takes my bishop, and I resigned. That was the first game. I had my chances in the game for sure, and I did not get to use them. I think most notable here was early on in the opening. I think had I pushed g4 here, either on move 10 or on the next move here, g4, and then parked my knight on d4, I think I would have a very reasonable chances of fighting for the win. Now, this game is definitely a motivation for me to illustrate that everyone is human. Even this best of very best give chances. So anything can happen in a single chess game, no matter who we are playing. All right? That's why the right play is always to play for the win. All right? Anything can happen in a single game. Cool. That was the first game that I wanted to show, and then I played this title Tuesday until the end, and the same day I got to play late title Tuesday. There are two of them on Tuesdays usually, and the similar scenario. I win first two games, or I believe it was two games, don't quote me on that again, it might have been the second game, but after winning first games basically, I got to play none other than Magnus Carlsen himself. I had actually never played Magnus before, so this was our first encounter. He starts with e4. I decided to challenge him with some Sicilian. I wanted to play Dragon against him, but he shuts down open Sicilian very early with c3. I was kind of happy to see this line because recently I've been playing e4 online for fun, and against Sicilian I've been thinking of coming up with a sideline that does not require that much theoretical knowledge. And c3 was one of my top choices that I've been using and have been having a lot of fun actually. So approval from Magnus himself meant quite a bit. I may be exploring this territory more. Uh, H3 here, the idea is white wants to play these positions in the style of Spanish or Rui Lopez or Italian positions, basically. This bishop wants to get on c2. White will short castle, will play either immediately d4 or will bring the knight, let's say knight d3, knight bd2, rook e1, knight f1, and then push d4 eventually. All right, knight e4 obviously is not a thing here because queen a4 is gonna win white and knight. So I continue with g6 and bishop d3, bishop g7, short castle, bishop retreats back to c2, and I develop my knight on c6. He goes d4, c takes d4, c takes d4, and now I decided to go for the light squared bishop. Same as in Italian or Rui Lopez / Spanish positions, light squared bishop is a very valuable piece. So capturing this bishop is a top priority among black's plans. Therefore, I was happy to take it off the board immediately, but Magnus does not give up that bishop that easily, goes bishop to b3. Now, you may be thinking that this pawn on e4 is hanging, central, very important pawn, but white has a very sneaky trick here. Queen to e1, attacking the knight on b4 and e4, and black will not be able to defend both at the same time. All right, so I did not capture on e4. I played d5, pawn to e5, now attacking my knight. I jump on e4, and Magnus very quickly plays knight to c3. He captured there as well. Pawn captures back, and knight retreats on c6. Now rook to e1. Clock here indicates that Magnus has not spent a second literally after the first few moves here. He keeps playing instantly, and what was surprising to me honestly was around here I'm trying to decide here what would be the best plan of development for black. Maybe knight a5 immediately, maybe bishop f5, maybe b6. So I chose to go bishop f5, and again almost instantly I get g4 on the board. 53, he did not even spend a second on the move. I did not understand how is this even possible. He was expecting almost me to play bishop f5 and almost pre-move g4. So I retreat my bishop back to e6 and he jumps knight on g5 to eliminate my light squared bishop. Now I figured that moving that bishop third time is probably too much, so I decided to leave it where it is on e6, hoping that this bishop will not be able to get around my pawn to exploit the weakness of the light squares. He goes rook to b1, rook goes to c8, queen d3, and here I go rook to f7. Idea of rook f7 was trying to either double up with queen f8 or maybe go queen c7, put the pressure on c3 pawn, and then bring rook on f8. And somewhere down the line after f4 I might have ambitions of sacrificing an exchange there to get some counterplay of my own. But first my focus here was to go queen c7, maybe b6, knight to c4, plant that knight there, and then bring the rook to f8. Now here he goes g5, again quite quickly, and this was the position where I realized that, oh man, I'm actually going to be playing without a piece because this dark square bishop is in jail. These pawns are putting my bishop in jail and my own pawn on e7. I cannot get this bishop out, and this e5 pawn is very hard to imagine leaving the board anytime in the game. So I got worried about what to do with this bishop. It is still hard to make progress with white, but obviously playing without a piece is never a nice feeling here. So now I'm thinking, should I eliminate this light squared bishop, or should I play immediately queen c7 and trying to keep this knight here and maybe go knight c4? So I go queen c7, And as soon as I play this move very fast, actually, no, this is the move that Magnus apparently had spent almost 30 seconds about. Maybe because he was calculating these lines after queen takes c3. So as soon as he plays bishop to d1, I realized that I goofed. I should have captured that bishop when I had a chance. Now this bishop is gonna come around to attack my e6 pawn, which is going to be a serious trouble. I will have to either sacrifice an exchange here for that bishop, basically put the rook on f5, or leave one piece for defending that pawn on a regular basis. Now, neither of those choices sound super exciting, so I decided to go down swinging, but things did not go quite as I imagined here. Takes on c3, bishop d2, I move my rook to a3 to defend my knight on a5, he goes bishop to g4, and I played knight c4. Last chance in the game here for me was probably moving this knight back to c6, attacking the d4, and hoping that he captures on e6. And the point is, if white actually takes this pawn, I have a sudden counterplay here with knight d4, bishop takes f7, king takes f7. Now I'm threatening knight f3 check. This bishop may come to life sometime very soon, and after I defend this pawn on b7, I may go king e6 there, knight f5, or maybe knight to e6 here. Black has a lot of outposts, so computer says this is very unclear, almost 0 zeros, slightly better for white, 0.15. However, the strongest continuation on knight c6 is simply defending this pawn on d4, and I still remain very passive here. Should have played knight to d8 probably, and then either white defends this a2 pawn and then goes for the invasion on the c file, or goes for the immediate invasion along the c file here. And if we look at the position, I do have two extra pawns, but both of my minor pieces are cut off the game. So this is going to be a very difficult position to handle, and white will have all the time in the world here to make progress. And man, anyone but Magnus, honestly, like, I don't think playing this position would be easy either. Magnus notably being one of the most technical players in the history of chess. So what happened in the game? I played knight to c4 to attack that bishop, then he goes bishop to c1, and here I realized that, all right, man has almost 2 minutes on the clock, I have half a minute here, and one of my rooks is hanging, b7 pawn is hanging, bishop e6 is hanging, and this was a panic here. I don't know what rook f5 was, double rook sacrifice. But he didn't even capture on a3, immediately captures on b7 first, and my clock dwindling down, I decided to call it. Now, while I did have definitely more chances in the first game than versus Magnus, still, it is not every day that I got to play these guys, so my jitters is gone, and hopefully I got to give them better fight next time. And yes, again, a big motivation to keep grinding, trying my best, and look for chances to play best players in the world. All right, again, anything is possible in a single game. That is why we should always be playing for the win, no matter who you are playing against. Cheers. I'll see you in the next one.